Sure.
So technically, this workshop ends at 10:15. So the next one doesn't start until 10. You got a little bit of a cushion in there, but I mean the discussion's great.
Sure.
But let's let him
Okay.
keep moving through.
Yeah.
Because you can ask questions later and.
Right, and I'll be around afterwards. So basically, the point that I want to say about the reserves is that we have been using our reserves to fund operations rather than to float revenue, and that is a problem. Reserves are not a bad thing to have. Okay, reserves are a good thing to have because it's what keeps the operation of the schools smooth. It's what keeps people paid. Okay, it's a sign of community commitment when you've got lots of reserves in your schools or in any government publicly funded entity. And it's a sign of effective management because if you're not paying your bills, you're not going to get the things you need when you need them.
So it's like reserves, kind of like your savings account?
Well, it's kind of like, if you're fortunate enough to make enough, I'm not, but if you're fortunate enough to make enough money to where you're not really going paycheck to paycheck, it's that money that's left over in between those paychecks after you paid your bills, right? So I've just got a couple things that I want to throw out there, and I think this is maybe the most important. This is not directly related to schools, but it is kind of related to the idea of budgets generally, and that is that I believe budgets are a reflection of our moral convictions as a community. And I don't really know how else to say that. I don't really know how else to say that. I mean, if we don't fund things, it's because we don't believe in them, or we're unwilling to stand up and fight for the things that we want. Okay. Now we've talked about community priorities, and obviously Sarah brought up some things that we pay for. We all want lower crime. These are the three things actually that we hear over and over and over again. We want lower crime, increased educational attainment, and we want lower taxes. So we kind of want it all. We want the world, right? And all of this is in the service of keeping the community healthy and avoiding population decline, which we have been kind of experiencing over the past decade, maybe two. Okay? So for our county budget, and I'm just going to deal with county budget because going forward, that's the only budget that's really in play in terms of funding education. Okay? We spend 30% of all the revenue that we receive in the county on education, 24% on criminal justice, and 13.7% on debt service. That debt service is funded infrastructure and schools primarily, all over the county, but if you look at the age of the schools all over the county, you can also tell which ones are we're probably still paying for and where they are. In Memphis, this is kind of another presentation, but police and fire, obviously, only half of this grants fund has traditionally gone to education. So, are we funding our priorities? Obviously we need public safety and whatnot, but in terms of looking at the deficit in our schools on a year-to-year basis, it's driving down our reserve. Are we really funding things? And our priorities that I showed a couple slides back, are they set straight? Because there's another big monster in the room, and that's poverty, that we don't, and that aren't one of these priorities.
Right.
20 these are the Shelby County numbers, okay? 20.1% of everybody in Shelby County is in poverty. 50% of all the single mothers in Shelby County that have kids under the age of 5 are living in poverty. These are the kids who are about to come into school right now. This doesn't count all the people who are near poverty, okay? This doesn't count the working poor. This doesn't count a whole host of people. These are just the folks who fall below what the census calls poverty, which is different, by the way, than the federal poverty level. It's actually less. Okay? So these are people that are for sure in poverty. In Memphis, it's even more dire, obviously. I think we all knew this on a certain level. So, you know, a lot of people say that I talk about poverty too much. I'm like, why are you talking about poverty? It's depressing. You know? So maybe they've got poverty fatigue. But poverty correlates, and you know, correlation does not equal causation. I always start with that. Poverty doesn't cause the things I'm about to show you, but they correlate to each other. You know, poverty correlates to, if this will go, higher crime, lower educational attainment. That depresses wages and housing values, which means you have lower tax collections, which means you have to raise taxes and have more regressive taxes to raise the funds to go forward, which further reduces the spending capacity of people who are already poor. And so then you just wash, rinse, and repeat, and all of a sudden you've got poverty all over the place. So, you know, the other thing is that the poverty is kind of talked about as this chicken and egg problem. You know, well, we can't increase educational attainment, we can't have more people until we start dealing with poverty, or we can't do the other, whatever it is. Which came first? And you know, I don't really care which came first. It doesn't matter to me. Personally, I say let's cook both. We'll have a feast. You know, let's deal with both of them at the same time. We don't have to do things in a linear way, okay? We can address educational attainment, and we can address poverty at the same time. We have to be committed to it, though, because neither one happens overnight. Neither one happens overnight. Look, we spend 13 years in school just to get a high school diploma that ensures us basically a $7.25 an hour job, okay? Which is, by the way, 133% of poverty. Okay? That's what a high school diploma will get you right now, basically. We spend 13 years doing that. If we're not willing to spend 20, 25 years reducing poverty in this community, we're not really committed to it, which also means that we're not committed to these things. We're not committed to lowering crime or increasing educational attainment or ultimately decreasing the tax burden. That means that this is all just lip service if we're not willing to deal with the 800-pound gorilla in the room. And so, if our budget is a reflection of our moral convictions, what do our budgets say about us? And I'm not necessarily talking about this budget, okay? I'm not necessarily, but I'm saying as we go forward in the budget process here in the county, the city, with the schools, we just finished the budget process with the state. I don't know if any of you guys saw it whiz by, but it took about 2 days for a $32 billion budget. What does it say about us? And what I think it says is that we've undercut our ability to address our top priorities. And so, if we're going to decrease the tax burden, we talk about crime, education, whatever, we use these things as political tools, in political speeches, and op-eds, and this and that and the other. But when it comes right down to it, it's no soup for you. It's not happening. Okay? It's not happening. And so, you need to ask yourself 2 questions going forward. And and this goes for all budgets. It goes to, is this a reflection of my moral convictions? And does this do what actually needs to be done? Because I think that, Sarah said that our property tax rate had dropped from 3.43 to 3.11. I'm going to tell you something. I haven't noticed that my property tax bill is that much different. I live in a, pretty average house in Midtown. Seems like it's been the same to me forever. With that, I'm going to leave you this. It's me. That's my web address. That's my email address, and we'll leave that up, and I'll take whatever questions you guys have.